Walking in with good intentions, walking out with no patience. I feel my buttons being pressed on, I feel my body trying to start some. I know I'm young, but I'm pissed off, telling everyone to kick rocks. A couple rounds of the mezcal, I'm falling down and I'm holding it up by a thread now. No, I ain't perfect, never said I was perfect, and I'm putting it all on a prayer now. No, I ain't perfect, never said I was perfect. This ain't my finest hour, might see my flaws today. My words are out of order, maybe my drink's to blame. Emptying all my pockets till I don't feel a thing. This ain't my finest hour, this ain't my finest hour. This ain't my fault. Bottling my emotions, all this talk and commotion. Everybody got me stressed out, I can't control if I break down. Every night is a big blur, I can't get a hold of my temper. Ain't no one to depend on, I'm falling down and I'm holding it up by a thread now. No, I ain't perfect, never said I was perfect, and I'm putting it all on a prayer now. No, I ain't perfect, never said I was perfect. This ain't my finest hour, might see my
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Twigi iRacing Truck Series. We're here at Indianapolis, but before we get to the action, we're going to send you off to Brendan Carroll for your beginning prayer.
Weather today. We want to please bless our drivers and teams, and let's put on a good show for the fans. In your holy name, amen.
As qualifying comes to an end here, Merrick is at the top of the board, but barely beating out Sam by 16 thousandths of a second. I think it's going to come down to those two. But sorry we missed out last week with some things going on, but we're back here at Indianapolis. It We're hoping for a good one today, but 50 laps here at Indy, 68% fuel, which is going to knock them around 20 to 22 laps per on a fuel cycle here. So, but with those 5 sets of tires, it's more like they're not going to use all of them. But if you got them, you're definitely going to have to use them. So, definitely looking forward to that. As qualifying comes to an end now, let's see. Uh, yep. We're going to send you off to Johnny O. is going to give you the start your engines.
The Twigi iRacing series at Kentucky. And drivers, start your engines.
It's not sending. All right, Roberts. So obviously, with them being here at Indy, what are some of the things that you're looking for?
I'm looking to see who can take care of the tires for the longest run. If we've got fuel stops in coming in about 20 laps, that means we have the potential for 2 green flag stops here. It'll be interesting to see who tries to play the undercut and come in at lap 10 and 30 and then stretch it to the end versus who goes for the overcut. Now, what I am looking for in these trucks is I think we're going to see front tires start to go away, which means we could see some decent fall off and really bring the undercut into being a strong strategy. But that's only a strong strategy if the race stays green. So I think cautions are going to play a big role as well as tire preservation. That's going to be that's going to separate what makes someone look like a genius or look like they missed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking here at the grid here, for some reason our row numbers are messed up. But obviously Merrick on the pole, same as second. That's your front row. And third, we have Patrick Hernandez, who I believe took over the point standings after the last week. So Merrick no longer has the point standings lead, but a solid job by John Lynch, starting fourth, John starting fifth, Jacob starting sixth, Ryan Mitchell starting seventh, Ryan Hyatt starting eighth. So both Ryans starting in the fourth row, and then Douglas Carlson and Brendan Craig bringing up the rear here.
One thing to look out for here in Indianapolis, the draft in the trucks is particularly strong, and Indianapolis has some big straightaways. I think the draft is going to be pretty important. There's two things to look at here. The draft allows a huge run as you approach the next corner, potential to get side by side and try and execute an overtake. But if you execute that overtake, the man you just passed has the same draft on the next long shoot. So hopefully these guys will be working to utilize that. And that's what's going to make this race really fun to watch is how can I keep the tires on my truck while maintaining good track position. Clean air is going to matter a lot going through these flat corners.
Yeah, absolutely. As the pace car is about to duck down, Merrick's going to bring him to the line. We're waiting on Bernie to get him the green flag. And there he goes. And green flag is out. One thing I'm also going to look forward to as well, Robert, is who is going to play the teamwork game. Who's going to work together to really help yourself, because the draft, even pushing each other on the track is going to be huge as well.
Well, it looks like the boys are keeping it side by side through the first 2 turns. Merrick and Sam going at it. That's our 2 fastest drivers from practice. Merrick does clear him on the backstretch.
I mean, like, how much more important is it going to be, like, for Merrick, who is out front? And obviously, it's going to be more of a disadvantage for the guy behind you. Is going to obviously burn off his stuff way more, in that aero wash. How key is it to be out front the whole time?
Well, he's burning the following car. That guy's burning off his tires more, but if he's clever, he's burning off his fuel less.
That's so true.
So that's what I'm looking for. If I'm that car behind, if I'm Sam Brochu right now, and I don't feel like I can get out in front of Merrick on raw pace, then I'm going to want to get out in front of Merrick on pit road. And that might be when I try and go for the undercut, pit behind him, come out behind him, see if I can't jump him on fuel mileage.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember, there's been a couple times where, like, I have tried the undercut and it has bit me in the butt several times, because, like, those guys on the fresh tires will run you down very quickly.
The fresh tires will run you down, and also, you don't want to be that guy that goes for the undercut and then you're sitting on pit road getting 4 fresh stickers and the yellow flies. No one wants to be that guy. It's a colossal punch in the gut.
Absolutely. And you never want to be the first guy to pit road. It's almost kind of like you want to wait for everyone to make the first pit stop, and then you kind of react to it.
That's exactly it, and it's also important if you're the leader. If you're the leader and the car behind you pits, he's coming out with fresh rubber. He's coming out with a pace advantage. So then, if you're one of those cars out front, you've got to be thinking, how long do I stay out even though I know I'm running slower laps? Because if the pit cycle comes around, now you've run more laps at a slower pace than the guy behind has at a faster pace, and you're going to come out of the pits behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen it all season with Merrick out front. Now, if you're the other guys, do you kind of just get tired of watching him out front, and it just kind of gives you that little bit of burn and desire just to try to beat him?
Thinking big picture. You don't want to watch that guy out front just stay out front race after race and just walk away with the championship. So eventually, especially when a guy has shown some nice early season dominance like Merrick has, absolutely, you want to put him in the rear view, start eating into that points advantage. Do you go up there and deliberately wreck him? Well, I certainly hope not. That would just be poor racecraft. But you definitely don't just want to ride around and let him grab another checkered flag.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm also looking at as well is how well, like, obviously you want to be close enough to where you get that draft, but you don't want to be so close where you really are feeling that aero wash. Like, how far do you think someone really has to be to get that full effect of the draft where you're not using as much fuel, but yet you're still not in that aero wash where it's burning away at your tires here?
Currently, Sam Brochu has about a tenth a second of a gap. I would rather see that gap at 2 or 3 tenths. That gives my car enough air to where I know I'm not overcooking the engine, which is also a real concern. This is a custom fixed setup. These guys can't change the tape. So if you've got a lot of tape on the truck, you don't want to follow too close or you're going to cook it. You also don't want to follow too close because it burns the tires up. I would want probably a 2 or 3 tenths of a second gap. It's worth noting right now that currently the fastest lap on the truck belongs to Sam Brochu. Now it's very close. It's very close to Merrick's lap. Sam Brochu with a 53.40 and Merrick with a 53.42. So currently, Sam's showing that he's got a little bit more raw pace in the truck. And he's currently the fastest truck on the track, but only by 1,000th of a second. These guys are level pegging so intensely. It's gonna heat up between these two eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. We watched them, back in Charlotte, back at Kansas. Really, the only race that Merrick did not show up to was the Bristol Dirt that we were watching, and I mean Sam put on a good show there too, but just wasn't able to, to close in on the win there.
He really did put on a good show there. Sam definitely drove his tail off in that race. But the Bristol Dirt is always a dice roll. It's always a lottery. Bristol Dirt kind of the same legend that they say about the Indy 500. Like, that race chooses its winner.
Mm-hmm.
But a race like this on a super speedway with the truck, it's really going to come down to execution. And Merrick has come out of the gate and showed that his strategy is going to be, I'm going to be out front, I'm going to stay out front. But it's worth pointing out, Sam Broshu's not giving him an ounce of time to breathe. Merrick has a mirror full of Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching the exit of 2. Sam got a really good run. He got right up to his bumper, but just wasn't quite able to get right underneath him to be able to make a pass there.
And you can see what Merrick's doing right there while we go down the straightaways. What Merrick's trying to do is he's pulling to the inside of the track, trying to break that toe. And when I say break the toe, he's trying to eliminate that direct flow of air. He's trying to make that tunnel of air behind his truck hard to follow for Sam. If you can break that toe and make the guy behind you, make that gap start to grow a little bit, then you can take some of the pressure off yourself. But you've got to be careful as the leader, because spending too much time in your mirror is a great way to end up seeing that guy in your windshield.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's one thing I do like. There are a lot of guys who have some really nice paint schemes, like Merrick. Those chrome numbers, like, it really just pops out.
That was a great thing iRacing gave to us. I believe it was with the Season 2 update. They gave us the chrome numbers, and that's awesome. It's nice to see that back.
Absolutely. As we switch back to watching John Lynch and Patrick Hernandez have a pretty tight fight. They're right bumper to bumper. Going into one, they were less than a tenth apart from each other, nose to tail.
Patrick's definitely... See, there he goes. He follows John down. He's definitely not trying to give him any room to breathe. He wants John Lynch to have a big old mirror full of JBL. And that's critical in Indianapolis. I mean, with a track, there's only 4 corners. And they're so similar to each other. But the way they present to you as a driver is different. For instance, turn 1 always somehow feels different to turn 3.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just your perception out of the race car. You see the grandstands differently. The turns look at you differently. Coming up to the entrance of turn 1, you just feel more constricted because you've got the pit wall right on your inside, and you've got this big grandstand right in front of you. It feels like a small space. Coming up to turn 3, however, everything's wide open. The inside wall's further away. The grandstands are smaller. You've got wide open blue sky out to your right. Turn 3 invites overdriving because it looks so much more open. And that's a place where myself personally, running the Xfinity car, have gotten bit several times.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even last night, when I was driving the Indy cars, it almost feels, like for me, I definitely seem like I overdrive turn 1 a lot more than I do 3, just because I think I could dive it in deeper, but ultimately it just bites you in the butt.
And a lot of that, and viewers, I apologize for getting really technical with this, but a lot of it at Indianapolis comes down to wind. So I'm going to pay attention down here at the other end of the backstretch, and I want to see exactly what the mile an hour is when Patrick Hernandez goes into turn 3 following John Lynch. And he's coming up into the 170s, 175. Are we going to get 180? We certainly are. 181 was his peak speed. Now, the wind matters. if he's driving into a 10-mile-an-hour headwind coming into turn 3, that means he's going to have a 10-mile-an-hour tailwind going into turn 1. He will effectively have less downforce on the truck. And Indianapolis is one of the few tracks where that really matters. That can really change what the truck feels like on one end of the track than the other. A lot of people look at this track and they say, oh, it's just a big rectangle. But it's a big rectangle that changes so much with wind, with sunlight. It's an oval that is nowhere near as plain Jane as it looks. As Patrick Hernandez goes to the inside of John Lynch, he's having a look. John Lynch says, no, not this time. Not this time, but I think Patrick's he's gonna tuck in behind him and try and make it happen later.
Absolutely. It's one of the nice things about Indy is like, even though there's not much banking, you can still defend your line on the outside by carrying that momentum. It is a little bit harder than some other tracks, but you can definitely still do it.
Absolutely. You carry just that little extra momentum. The thing to look out for, though, usually the guy on the inside is having to drive in a little harder. It asks a little bit more of that right front tire. Whereas the guy on the outside, he's staying in the throttle a lot more. It asks a lot of that right rear tire. So you don't want to do this for too long. If the guy behind you is faster, let him go, tuck in behind him, save your tires, come back at him in 5 laps.
Yeah, but while this has all been going on, Merrick has actually pulled out to over a second lead of Sam, and essentially just driving away with this.
Healthy gap. Now, this is what Sam Brochu didn't want to see. In fact, this is what none of the other drivers want to see. At this point, Merrick can start saving fuel himself because he's getting close to the point where he's going to break the draft to Sam behind. And once that draft is broken, now they've both got to punch the air the same, and now Merrick can start saving fuel.
Absolutely, as we're now getting closer to the pit window within 4 to 5 laps here. I know it's a tall order. As Hernandez scrapes the wall, but it's a tall order. But someone could potentially maybe even make it into a 1 stop by saving fuel, but then that kind of burns the question, did you save too much and give up too much time?
And at a place like Indianapolis where the straightaways are so long and the corners are so fast, I think that's exactly the spot you put yourself in. I think you would have to be so far off the pace to save enough fuel to make it a 1 stop to where there's no way you're making that ground up, and a yellow flag screws it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
A yellow flag junks the whole plan. Nobody wants to get caught a lap down on pit road. It's Matt, you and I are both racers. That's literally the worst feeling ever.
Absolutely. Especially, I know I've done it before where in league races where I was even the last person to pit road and I came down pit road and there was a caution while I was on pit road. And even though I was the leader and already on pit road and the caution came out, when I came out of the pits, iRacing even put me to the back of the grid. And that was like the most hopeless feeling.
And we've seen in this race, passing's not going to be easy to accomplish here. Overtakes are going to be hard to set up. They're going to be even harder to execute. What we've really got to make sure happens is the strategy you started this race with, you simply must execute. You've just got to. Patrick Hernandez, though, I don't think he acquired any damage from his gentle encounter with the retaining wall. If so, it's not really showing because he is still on John Lynch's tail.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this pair is still 4 seconds behind the leader, but they're having their own good race, and let's be honest, there's still good points to be had for 3rd place.
Absolutely. Right now, we're looking at really the battle for 7th between Brendan and John. There's battles, really duo battles throughout the field here. And it really just comes down to that draft of keeping people with each other. Because you even look back to, the battle for 9th too between Douglas and Ryan. They're right on each other too.
They are. In fact, there's only 0.3 of a second that separates them, which is still tight. I mean, Ryan is still in Douglas's draft. He's still got that nice toe. But I'm really excited to see what happens here in 4 laps regarding pit strategy, because they've all got to come.
Oh, and we
They're
do
gonna
have
be
some
out of fuel
takers right now.
eventually.
We have Sam and John actually on pit road right now.
This is interesting. Our leader hasn't come yet, which means our leader's probably going to run the tank out. This could be a slight bit of an undercut on the part of Sam Brosher. He's trying to get out, get in clean air with fresher rubber, see if he can lay down some hot laps and reduce the delta to Merrick when Merrick has to make his stop. But Sam has he's just rolled the dice. A caution is not what Sam wants right now. The good thing is, though, at Indianapolis, as long as you're within a straightaway of the leader, you can make this pit without going a lap down.
Absolutely. As Merrick now comes down pit road, seeing and pretty much reacting to what Sam did. We even see Patrick Hernandez coming down as well.
Pit road speed here at Indianapolis is 60 miles per hour. Now, in the stock cars and in the Indy car, that is shocking. You're used to going around here at 180, and then we've got to slow down to 60. There's a lot of, as we just see, Patrick Hernandez has blown the entry to his pit box. That is going to be expensive. He probably cost himself a solid 2 or 3 seconds there.
Absolutely. That's going to give.
And that's exactly what I mean when I talk about execution. You can have a great race. I mean, we just saw Patrick Hernandez in the fight for the final podium spot.
And we
Execution on pit road is critical.
Absolutely. We see Sam now going through turn 2, as he's going to be able to leapfrog Merrick and actually take a lot of momentum down the back.
Gotten ahead of Merrick. He's got a big run. We're going to check in on that delta once Merrick actually gets up to speed, but I think Sam Brochu just had a great pit cycle.
Absolutely. It was really about the in-lap, out-lap, because both of their pit lane total delta, total pit lane was 41.3 for Sam, 41.2 for Merrick, and they had an identical in-the-box stop time of a 14.6.
And that's exactly what I was saying when I said it's so important that Sam stays close. Not so close that he's eating his tires up, but just close enough to where a little bit of Indianapolis fortune and a little bit of execution can make those differences. Easily, the gap that we currently see between Sam and Merrick, that gap could have been generated on the pit road entrance, on the level of commitment when you get down to pit lane. Who's going to be the latest of the late breakers? Yeah. Getting down from 180 to 60 is really, really difficult, especially in these trucks. These things don't have anti-lock brakes, ladies and gentlemen. These things are hard to stop. They're big, heavy stock cars.
And that's just the power of pitting one lap pressure, because with the delta fall off, it has to be around a second and a half, because that's the 2 seconds, because that's exactly the time that he ended up making up.
And now that they're both back on track, let's see, Merrick's last lap time of 53.4 to Sam's last lap time of 53.6. This is going to be the race we wanted to see. These two, I think we're going to have some strategy games in store for each other. They simply must pit again. Now, if we catch a caution from lap 30 onwards, that'll be the last stop of the race. But if it stays green, somewhere around lap 40, everyone's going to have to pit again.
Yeah, now it begs the question is when do you make the next stop? Because obviously you want to maximize your tires right now. Like if you're Sam and you pitted, if you pitted, a lap earlier than Merrick, you are going to try to maybe split it. Or if you're Merrick, do you go that one lap extra further?
I believe we were on, let's see, Sam Brochu is 4 laps into his current run. Merrick is 3 laps into his current run. Now that one lap could start to matter a lot, as I think we're looking at about a 20-lap fuel run here. So with us being so close, I think Sam Brochu can run to about lap 37 or 38, whereas Merrick should be able to run to about lap 38 or 39. It'll be interesting to see what 2 strategies these guys pull. Either way, there's only one more pit stop. There's only one. And when do you do it? Do you want to go ahead and get the pit stop out of the way earlier? That way, you know you don't have to pit again, and you can just worry about banking laps.
Mhm.
Do you come in and pit earlier? That way, if you come out of the pits by yourself and you've got clean air, and you can lay down some screaming laps and try to run down that delta, or do you run it out, counting on the fact that nobody can be perfect for this long, and see if we're going to have a caution?
That's right. We did see during that first stint is how Sam was able to stick with Merrick, and then at the end of that last run, Merrick just started pulling away from him. And this is about the delta, like a 1.3, a 1.2 is the gap that Merrick ended up pulling out before the pit stops. Now that is the time that he can pull, run down. So it is amazing because like if we look back at the Charlotte race, I believe it was the All Star race, Merrick had a hard time keeping his tires underneath him, and it seems like he's finally figured that out to be able to save his tires for that long run.
Right here, we see a little bit of side-by-side action between the number 24 and the number 71. It looks like John's not going to be able to hold on to that position for P7. Ryan Mitchell's going to take it from him and get him clear. Doesn't look like John's giving up just yet. The 24 goes way to the inside to make sure the 71 doesn't have any draft. And it looks like Ryan Mitchell has that position well and truly squared away, but John continues to... He's running a little bit of an unconventional line. He's trying to run about a groove up and carry some momentum, see if he can't close that gap. Or he might be taking care of his tires. That's the interesting thing about Indianapolis. If you've been running tight to the curbing and you feel like your right front's getting a little worn, you can move up a groove and lean on the right rear a little more and try to balance the truck back out.
Yeah, you'll get that late exit to try to get that maximum momentum down the stretch. The one thing I'm also looking at too is Merrick has closed down that gap to almost halfway.
I think Merrick is I think Merrick's ready to go to war.
Oh, and Sam scratched the wall a little bit there.
Ooh, the gap now down to 0.4 of a second. Merrick is on the hunt, and you'll notice Sam's not doing it's actually a technique that got nicknamed after this track. It's called the Indy Snake. What we saw in that first run where Merrick was diving down to the white line to try to break that draft. Sam's not doing that quite as aggressively, and it's just giving Merrick this nice, beautiful tunnel of air that he can drive through to try to run down that bumper.
Absolutely. As we're looking to the back of Sam's truck, you can even see his right rear spoiler is just a little bit, it's not as linear like as it should be.
No, and unfortunately at Indianapolis is considered a super speedway. And at super speedways, Matt, you and I have seen it time and time again. We've even been in races together. At super speedways, aero is king. I think that ding spoiler, even if it only counts for 0.5 a lap, that's enough. That's enough for Merrick to run him down as he has. The gap now within 0.1 of a second.
Absolutely. He's been consistently almost 0.2 faster each lap. As we've reached the halfway stage, it's really just been the Sam and Merrick show.
Merrick's last lap I'm reading is a 57.8. Sam Brochu's last lap a 57.4.
Right there.
A 0.4 of a second lap delta. Sam's not going to be able to defend that. The question is, how hard will he try?
Absolutely.
And here comes Merrick. Merrick is right on the bumper. He's looking inside, going into turn one. Sam tries to defend, but it's just too late. And here they are side by side.
Now
these guys are keeping it as tight as it can get. Sam is trying to defend. Merrick has the run. They are wheel to wheel going into turn two. Merrick's gonna get a little bit of the upper hand, and they are perfectly side by side in a drag race down the backstretch. This is what I was hoping we'd get out of the Twigi iRacing series tonight.
Oh, Sam tries to squeeze him down.
Merrick's having none of it. Merrick will clear him into 3. Outstanding performance by both of these drivers, keeping that clean. Side by side in Indianapolis is nerve-wracking, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care if it's in the Lotus 49, the Indy car, the NASCAR truck, the Cup car. Side by side in Indy will put your hairs on end.
Absolutely. Like, one of the things is, like, you are putting a lot of trust on that guy on the inside. If you're diving, or really, if you're trying to keep it on the outside to defend your position, you're putting a lot of trust on that guy on the inside to not slide up into you.
Absolutely. They're the wonderful thing about league racing, especially a group like these guys that seem to be pretty tight-knit. They seem to be pretty familiar with each other and how they drive. You're counting on that guy inside of you to be able to drive his you-know-what. We're not trying to wreck each other. I mean, but putting it on each other's door and keeping it together like that over the course of a lap, that's what you expect to see out of the good iRacing leagues, and we seem to have one of those here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, every week they are really tight. I think there's only been a few, really only a few of the races that has really even got massively strung out. But really, it's just been really the top 3 that have stuck together pretty much every single race.
Merrick with the 55.7 on that last lap. Sam with the 56 flat. So on the lap he was having to go side by side and work that overtake, Merrick still managed to be 0.3 of a second faster.
Yeah, we are approaching that time where you can really make it to the end if you pit from here with maybe a little bit of fuel saving, but in a couple laps, we could be potentially seeing the final stops of this race.
The battle for the final podium position is within a second of each other. We might not be done seeing war between John Lynch and Patrick Hernandez. As we come up on lap 30, which at this point, we should start keeping an eye on pit road, because right now you can pit and make it to the end. And if I'm Sam Brochu in second place, I know I've got a little damage on the truck. And twice I've gone side by side with Merrick, and twice Merrick has won. This is where, if I'm Sam Brochu, I might try to come to pit road, put fresh tires on the truck, get in clean air, and see if I can lay down some laps that are hot enough to where I might be able to leapfrog Merrick and get the clean air on my truck. I can't beat him on pace. Got to try to beat him in the pits.
Absolutely, and even take advantage of that fast repair that everyone has. That, like, remember, they have one fast repair, and if he definitely wants to get that damage fixed.
The fast repair, it's instantaneous. Boom, brand new truck. Pop that spoiler back into position, and see if we can't start laying back down the, those low 55s that we've been seeing.
Absolutely, and one thing that I also noticed too is how Patrick Hernandez has ran down John, even though he has, he did have one lap fresher tires. So it makes you kind of wonder if he wants to wait that one lap after just so he has that fresher tires. We see Hernandez get really loose coming out of turn 2. But another thing,
I know following that truck's draft, he's got to be battling a tight truck. I mean, he doesn't have the good air on the nose. He's got to be fighting it.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're really fighting a tight car, you almost turn the wheel too much, and then when it finally grips, that's when it snaps loose, and it makes you think you're loose, but it's kind of like messing with your brain there.
And ladies and gentlemen at home, if you hear us starting to use the term push loose, that's exactly what we're talking about. You put so much wheel into the truck, and it's when I first started. When I first told myself that I wanted to take my sim racing to a better level, it's something that I had to really make myself stop. It's such an easy habit to fall into. Hey, the vehicle's not turning. That means I should just turn the wheel more. Yeah. Not necessarily. Mm-hmm. If you ask the front tires for too much, they just slide. And then you burn them off faster and you go even slower.
Oh, yeah. And one thing, too, is if you're Hernandez, remember, he slid through his pit box in that first pit cycle and was 2.5 seconds slower in total pit lane time than John, and right now he's stuck behind him. So he has to be really kicking himself too.
And that's in super speedway racing, really in any oval track racing. It matters in all racing, whether it's an endurance race. You really see it in a Formula One race. Pit road really matters. I mean, if we can save, because right now, if you look at the battle between John Lynch and Patrick Hernandez, 0.2 of a second on pit road would have put Hernandez ahead of Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
And those 0.2 of a second can be found on your entry to pit road. How late do I hit the brakes? I've got to get down to 60 miles an hour, but am I willing to lock up all four and slide to the cones? When it comes to time on pit road speed limit is 60. Am I willing to push it to 61 and risk the black flag? When it comes to leaving pit road, as soon as the jacks drop, do I light the tires up and launch up to 60? Or do I not risk spinning the truck out and be a little conservative, even though that might give up time? Pit road is easily a place where you can lose a race if you're simply not willing to push the envelope as hard as the guy in front of you.
Oh, as we see them both dive. Oh,
And Hernandez going for a big move, a big commitment.
Oh, they
and
both spin.
spin. Oh, goodness me. But it looks like Hernandez keeps his truck generally clean. I think they both still have their fast repair remaining. Hernandez is back up to the 60-mile-an-hour pit road speed limit. There he goes, pushing it to 61, back down to 60. He's flirting with that pit road speed limit. Hernandez is trying to jump John Lynch in the pits.
Absolutely. But we also just saw that Merrick has stayed out an extra lap. So it is going to be interesting to see how long he stays out there before coming into pit road.
Sam lights up the tires to leave. Well, I want to pay attention to this race. Oh, Hernandez's left tires are going on before John Lynch's. I think Hernandez is going to get him in pit road, and he does. And it's by a margin. John Lynch is just now leaving his box.
And Merrick stays out for another lap.
Surely he's got to be coming sooner. He's banking on a caution, which, as green as this race has been, that's a bold strategy on Merrick's part. I don't want to put the broadcaster's curse on him, but I think trying to run this out when everyone else is going for the undercut, as the leader, you have to know that if the car behind you pits, he's going to come out on newer tires and faster. You have to respond to cover that pit stop. He can only make it to lap 40 on fuel. He's got to come soon.
But with how fast he was able to catch Sam and with how many laps there are, I think it could be even a bigger advantage to wait until later on in the run as we see him start to duck down now.
There he goes. He knows that those guys behind him are on better tires. They're faster. He can't afford to wait. Does he get it? He makes a clean pit road entry. That was a little bit conservative. We didn't see a lockup. He didn't push it too hard. Merrick truly acting like a smooth operator running this race.
Absolutely. We see Sam going down the backstretch, going to turn 3, and Merrick still going down pit road. Obviously, Sam's going to come out front, but it's going to be interesting to see how far he is.
And Merrick slides the box.
Oh no. I think he just gave him the curse.
I think the broadcaster's curse has struck. Sam only 3 seconds behind. Left side tires. Merrick leaving the box. He's got 14 laps to run down a very fast Sambro shoe.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Merrick with a good pit road exit. There's a lot of time to be made up here, but you can't afford to give any up. It looks like a clean blend back onto the race surface. We're going to see Merrick come up through the gears, and he's got a little bit of work to do. Jacob Elkins currently sitting P2. Will have to pit again. He's 18 laps into his stint.
Absolutely. As we can see, Sam did take the fast repair. You can even just see when looking at the back of his car, you cannot even see Merrick anywhere. That little dot coming off of turn 4 right now is Merrick, so it's quite a distance.
7.5 seconds. That's a lot to ask. But Merrick will have newer tires to do it with.
Absolutely. When we've seen him all race long really take care of his tires and really use his tires to really the full potential versus everyone else.
this is where we can see big picture racing really start to matter. If I'm Merrick Watchorn, I've just made a mistake on pit road, but I've got the championship lead. Actually, I don't. If I'm Merrick Watchorn, I don't have the championship lead, but Sam doesn't have it. Patrick does. I need to beat Patrick Hernandez, and right now I am, by 6 seconds. If I finish second ahead of Patrick Hernandez and third, I gain on him in the points. I don't need to wreck my truck trying to run down Sam Brochu.
But we just saw that last lap, though. He was almost 6/10 faster that last lap.
Merrick Watchorn has just logged a 53.4. That's a very impressive lap. The gap now down to 6.4 seconds. Merrick has eaten up a second in just that one lap. If I'm Merrick Watchorn, I think it's qualifying time. I need qualifying laps from now to the end of this race. And what you're hoping for is you're hoping that Sam, sitting out there in the lead, he sees that delta dropping. He sees that gap closing. He'll start to overdrive his stuff, maybe force a mistake out of it.
Absolutely. You know, with 12 laps to go, and if he's consistently knocking off 6/10 a second every single lap, he's going to be right there at really with 2 laps to go, or even on the white flag lap. But is he going to burn off too much to where he'll get there, but he won't be able to make the pass?
Yes, that is the question. Sam Brochu, the last lap time of 54.2, Merrick Watchorn at 53.7. It'll be interesting to see how long Merrick can keep this up before he overworks those front tires. But the gap is still 5.5 seconds. Merrick still has clean air.
And one of the things I noticed, you know, when I was on board with Sam is when Merrick first came on the pits, I heard Sam clutching a little bit going into the corners, I believe on 1 and 3. Even though he pitted with plenty of laps to go, obviously that's the one thing with the trucks is you do want a little more fuel, because with more fuel, the car does tend to be a little bit looser as well.
It does, and the other thing Sam might be considering is a late caution. We've seen how critical track position here. We've seen how hard passing is here. Is Sam trying to account for a late caution, saying, you know what, I pitted early, but I need to have enough fuel to cover a green-white checkered?
But with that's the thing, though, with the green-white checkered, you know, they have 5 laps and they've only used 2. Obviously, you have 3 left. And if a late caution comes out, if you're someone in the front, do you try to pit for tires and hope that everyone comes with you? Or are you that one guy in the back that says, you know what, let me just try this and just go all in with the tires here?
If I'm on the lead lap, I'm coming for tires. That's going to be the decision. If I'm on the lead lap, I'm coming for tires. Put 4 stickers on her. Let's go get them. I've got to step away for just a second, Matt. I will return.
So then we're going to hop back and watch this battle for a second between Brendan and John. They've been relatively close the whole race and still battling really tightly. You see Brendan has a little scrub up on the right side, maybe even got the wall, at some point during the run. But maybe they can even try to work together to catch up to Jacob, 6th spot, but that's going to be a little bit difficult. But another thing I have noticed between Sam and Merrick is that the lap times have gotten a little bit closer, and Merrick's not closing in as fast as he was at the beginning of the run as the tires now start to really to equal out here. Now, as we see John dive to the inside, and Brennan here is like, Stewart, he's just trying to stick his nose there to try to get underneath him, forcing up wide, make him take the longer way around. And now, as you see, John is able to pull up right next to him, really use that momentum that he got off the four, to get ahead of Brendan there.
I've returned, Matt. I noticed that on our previous lap, looks like Merrick is still 0.3 of a second faster than Sam, but unfortunately, 0.3 of a second faster. The gap is 4.4. There's 6 laps left to go. I think Merrick's going to run out of laps.
Yeah, I think he just waited one lap too long, and that slide through the box really hurt him too, because Sam Brochu's total lane time was 40.9, and with Merrick sliding through the box, his total pit lane time was 43.3, almost 2.5 seconds.
2.5 seconds.
And you take away that 2.5 seconds, this is a less than a 2-second gap, and even though
in 2 seconds he could run down in 7 laps.
Absolutely.
2.5 seconds, he's going to come up short.
Even though it's even within 2 seconds, you still get a little bit of a draft help as well, which will help him down the straightaways.
Exactly. I mean, that would be just enough to make the difference between, am I going down the straightaway at 176 miles an hour or 182? And Merrick is trying. Let's see. Merrick with a 54.9, Sam with a 55.2. Still a 0.3 delta, but just not enough laps for it to matter. Does Sam make a mistake? I mean, you're just now to the point where you can see that black and blue truck in your mirror.
Yeah, but I think the gap's still too much. I think he's just got to go to sit pretty. I mean, he's still clutching into turn one. So, I mean, he's kind of just really just chilling right now. I mean, it is kind of close for him on fuel, but we saw it was 18 to 20 laps. And at the end of the run, with how much the tire falls off, you're automatically already going to be off the throttle even longer. I'm going to save fuel. So I think he's fine. But even if it comes with a green white checkered, everyone at this point is going to be at the end of the run, and you're going to have to pit.
Everyone's coming for tires. Absolutely.
But if there is a late race caution, does somebody roll the dice and do a 2-tire stop and try to maybe even not necessarily win, but gain more points than what they would have?
It's an interesting thing to bring up, because if you're Merrick, I think you take 4 on a late caution at this point. You got to be safe. And both times that we've seen Merrick and Sam go side by side, Merrick's come out on top. So Merrick knows that he can beat him heads up. But unfortunately, remember earlier in our broadcast, I brought up execution. Well, part of execution is not making mistakes. And unfortunately, I mean, Merrick's an outstanding driver. He's got a better iRating than mine. Merrick's a great driver. He made a mistake. The pressure of maintaining the race lead, trying to run the race from out front, it's not an easy mantle to hold. And Merrick slid his box. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that one mistake, watching that blue and black truck slide through the pit stall, that mistake is what's making the difference at the front of the pack right now as we come to 3 to go.
Absolutely. Like the other person that slid through his box earlier was Patrick Hernandez, and he did it early on in the race. It's so much easier to climb back from an earlier mistake than a mistake like late in the race.
Absolutely. You make a mistake on lap 5 out of 50, you've got 45 laps to fix it. But if you make a mistake on lap 30 of 50, the pressure is now on you in a big way. You've got to try so hard. You've got to push so hard and be so fast for so many laps. It's very, very hard to accomplish.
Absolutely, but that's it's nothing to take away from Sam because he's driven an absolute fantastic race from start to finish. I mean, I can't say that all the way yet, but he's done nothing wrong, and it has put him in a position to grab the potential win here, and possibly his third of the season.
And that's exactly it. He's done nothing wrong. He's executed. He's executed. His strategy was to stay out front, stay close enough to Merrick to where the pressure is on Merrick. Merrick has to be perfect. If he's not perfect, I win this race. And Sam's done that tonight. He had so much pressure on Merrick. Merrick knew he had to have a perfect pit cycle or he was going to give it to Sam. And the tail of the tape is the fact that the number 25 is in P1 right now.
Absolutely. Like you look at their last laps too, it was exactly a 10-second difference with Merrick still being quicker, but tires have pretty much evened out now.
Tires have evened out. Tires are nice and hot now. Merrick's probably starting to feel a little bit of a lack of grip. Merrick's seeing that on number 25 truck, and as Sam takes the white flag, the next flag ends the race. Fantastic performance from Sam Brochu tonight. Fantastic.
Absolutely. And there is a lap car in front of Sam, but it's going to make no difference.
4 seconds ahead. Very excited to talk to our podium finishers after the race. Very excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will be trying to see is really like what was going through everyone's mind when it came to that last pit stop. And as we see Sam now come off of turn 4, he's going to go to the low end of the racetrack to get next to the wall to celebrate with his crew as Sam pulls an upset here at Indy.
An upset.
And wow, I mean, overall, a fantastic race by everyone. Really, we went green from start to finish, and that's exactly how you want to run a race.
Doesn't get better than that. Good strategy, good speed, good execution. That's how we win races.
There's a really good battle to the finish by John and Brendan, and John ended up coming out on top by 21 thousandths of a second over Brendan Craig.
Incredible. A nice, clean, and green race from the Twigi League tonight.
Absolutely. Some really tight racing, too. We see John actually has some damage on his right side. He must have got into the wall. Again, that's why he was able to keep up with Patrick Hernandez there.
And it looks like Hernandez has spun again on pit. Oh, God. There's a lot of interesting things happening on pit road post-race. As we see Sam Brochu burn it down at the Brickyard. Pretty decent burnout for Sam. Nice work.
I mean,
grabbing it to the left, going down the front stretch. Big salute to the fans.
Absolutely, not too many people are able to do that, and because you see it a lot during the sim too, is that whenever they try to do it, just jerks exactly to like the inside wall, and but overall a really good run for Sam, and really another win for for Spino Racing.
Well, judging by his 4,500 I rating, I'm going to say Sam Broshu's probably pretty accustomed to doing burnouts.
Yeah, and we're gonna step away just for a brief second, and we will bring in our top three for post race questions. And welcome back to the Twigi iRacing series. We're here with Patrick Hernandez. And Patrick, how overall did your race go here today?
It was a decent effort, from practice, I know that I didn't have the best car, I tried my best, the best effort that I could have. So I already knew that third place, maybe a fourth place was possible because man, Merrick and Sam, they were on another zip code. They were extremely fast. So I was trying to save at least the third spot, the fourth spot, and yeah, man, I wish I could have a bit more speed to try to fight for the lead, but tonight wasn't the night.
Well, Patrick, one thing I'd like to talk to you about, the battle between you and John Lynch was fun to watch all night. It looked like you guys had a nice drag race coming into pit road entry for that final pit stop. You both spun, but you made the far better recovery and managed to park that 19 truck on the podium. What were you thinking of when that last pit road entry, when you were there side by side with John? What's the thought process going through the driver's head when you come to make that last pit stop?
Before that, man, like I was faster than John, but passing him was so difficult. It was almost impossible because every time I tried to dive down to make a pass, the dirty air, man, the truck got extremely tight. So I said the only way I can beat John is on pit road, and if we go at the same time, I have to outduel him at pit road entry. And just as I decided to dive down pit road, he saw me and he decided to dive down with me, like a last second. I said, okay, things are gonna get interesting. Then I don't know what happened between him. He started braking and his truck was start moving sideways. I said, "Uh oh, this is not good." I'm trying to find a hole to try to avoid him just in case. And then I forgot about the speed limit line, and I slammed the brakes, and then I don't know what happened to him. He clipped me. I hit the wall, but then I managed to gather uh, the truck back up, and I managed to get out of pit in the first place. But man, um, that was a crazy moment on the race. I wasn't expecting that for real.
Yeah,
Well, it was a lot of fun for us to watch.
and
Yeah.
absolutely, like you had multiple different incidents on pit road. Even with the first pit entrance, you slid through your box and had to run down John again. So was that kind of like in your mindset to really get to get pit road down?
Yeah, after the first pit stop, I saw that he went first. I went a lot later, and I saw the amount of distance that he pulled on me. And from that point on till the time I catch him, I was thinking about, okay, what I'm gonna do on the next pit stop. So I know that the undercut is gonna give you an insane amount of distance. So if I want to win the third spot, I will have to go in first no matter what. And I drive the wheels off my truck, man, to catch him. You know, like it was really hard to catch him, but then we have that. Uh, I don't know that disaster on on P road, but thank God that I managed to get the upper hand and secure the third spot.
Well, I'd like to say that through some good recoveries on pit road and through great consistency out on the racetrack, you managed to overcome 2 mistakes and still park that number 19 on the podium. Good work tonight, Patrick.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, and Mr. Patrick. And do you have any words, people to shout out tonight?
Not tonight, man, but I want to say thank you to Merrick, Mitchell, to all the guys that make possible that this league is running every week. You know, to the guys that make possible that we have this space to relax, have fun. You know, and uh, thanks to them for this space, and that's it, man. I wish I would have somebody else to say hi, but nobody's watching.
Man, that's your third place finisher, Patrick, and we will be right back with your second place finish, Merrick.
All right, Merrick, that was a fantastic performance to watch from you tonight. Looked like you had Sam on the pace. Man, that pit road execution on that last stop bit you, but all told, a good showing. What happened on that last pit stop?
My box and I stayed out too long. I was hoping to get some fuel, some extra fuel, because me and Sam were both really tight on fuel towards the end there. I was coming to like 2 laps to go, and that's the reason why I was catching Sam drastically, and I came from being 8 seconds behind him down to a 3 second gap, was simply just because he was saving fuel because he was short and I was going to be exactly where I needed my pit window for. So I was trying to get as much fuel in the car as possible for the finish there, but you can't win them all. So we still got 4 wins, so we're good. It's just going to be a tough fight, but at least we've regained the points lead out of this race.
And absolutely, with you having, obviously led the most laps and really just played like a solid card tonight. You really did nothing wrong except for that pit stop. How does it feel to still have that momentum going for you, like through the season?
It's a good feeling. Just lets us know that our Twiggy Silverado is, definitely going to be a contention to go for our second championship in the Twiggy iRacing Series League. So hopefully we can, get up front, stay out of trouble, and win a couple more. We go to Nashville Superspeedway next week, so I won it last year, so hopefully I can win it again this year, and it'll be kind of nice. And we just gotta stay out of trouble and just keep the car under us, and hopefully this week I'll actually have time to build the setup. This week we actually had to use the default setup because the setup for the actual setup since Monday, it was kind of screwed up. I wasn't anticipating for the car and the chassis to be completely different this time around, so I was like scrambling for like an hour or two trying to get this setup fixed, but I just decided like I'm just gonna use the default setup for the guys tonight, and we'll just pick it up next week with our custom setups for the Twigi iRacing series.
Now, we had a pretty good race tonight here. I mean, you and I spoke earlier in the week. We were a little bit nervous about seeing a grand procession, but believe it or not, the draft games, the fuel strategy, like we actually had a great show tonight. What was your plan at the start of the race, and were you able to execute that?
Actually, the plan was to run the long run. I know I was definitely a lot better on tires when it comes to Sam. Sam, he's still learning how to save tires. So I knew that if we got towards the long run, I can get that distance between him and I. But he kept undercutting me and getting out on pit road first. So it was just a battle from there and just trying to get back in front of him every time. But you know, the execution of pit stops and pit strategy with just 2 pit stops. I mean, it was a great opportunity to try and see if I can overshoot it and get away from him, or should just undercut him. But unfortunately, you gotta lay in the bed that you made for yourself, and I was going for that distance and trying to see if I can increase the gap. Instead, he increased it on me, so it's just a bad pit strategy overall for me. But we had a very fast Twiggy machine tonight, so hopefully we can take that to Nashville next week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, Gil, congratulations on your second place finish and retaking the point standings lead. We're going to open up the floor for you to shout out for anyone that you would like.
Yeah, I just want to thank my family, my friends, and loved ones, and everything else. And want to thank Twiggy, the Watchword Innovations Group Incorporated. My parents are really cool about it, and letting me use the the company's name to sponsor the league and to let me sponsor on my truck. I want to thank Capture the Occasion. He's a really good friend of mine. He takes really good photos of my truck sometimes, so I can post on Instagram. So if you guys are always looking for Instagram photos of my truck or other, photos throughout the league, it's Ghost Merc on Instagram. And then the QSA, the Quam Security Alliance, they just jumped on board with us about 2 weeks ago. They help with national security and whatnot, so it's pretty cool. And then CMS, really cool bunch of guys, and of course Sleek Racing, my teammates Patrick and Ryan for giving me a fantastic paint job. I asked him to give me a Ross Chastain paint job for tonight and make it, instead of red, make it blue and black. So we were trying it out tonight. This is gonna be an alternate paint scheme where when I feel like I don't want to run my main one, I'll run this one. So, but yeah, hopefully we can go next week and increase our points lead and try to get our 5th win of the season, maybe more, before the playoffs start.
Awesome.
Looking
Yeah. Yeah, congratulations again. We will be right back with your race winner.
Sam Brochu. First, I just want to congratulate you on an outstanding performance tonight. Something Matt and I talked about early in the broadcast. Execution here at these super speedways. And son, you did great job on execution tonight. I mean, no mistakes on pit road, a solid performance out on track. You didn't fight unnecessary battles. I'd like to hear about what your strategy was coming into this race and if you feel like you successfully nailed all those points.
Well, I didn't have a strategy coming into this race. I completely forgot that our fuel was basically cut in half. So I really just did math on the fly. I know Merrick likes to stretch it basically to the end. So I more or less pit right before he does. That way I can undercut him, and I undercut him all 3 times. And the last one really surprised me, that he stretched it as far as he did. And I knew when he pitted, and then I came on the front stretch and I saw his name on my relative. I said, this is my race to lose. But I looked at my fuel calculator and I saw that I needed to save 6 laps. No idea how I saved 6 laps. That boggles my mind, but I did it. We're in victory lane. Kind of surprised, but hats off to Merrick. He put up a fantastic fight, and it was really fun battling him dirty air sucked, but we made the most out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. During that first run, you were able to stick with Merrick for most of the run, but then he was able to pull away to second. Like, what did you learn during that first run to save your tires, for future on?
Wasn't really more of saving or learning to save my tires. I kind of figured that out halfway through the first run. But the second run, I just switched up my line a little bit to where I would enter lower, kind of let it roll more center, and then that would give me a lower exit off the corner. Um, I did see what Merrick was doing. He kind of have a wider entry and then cut it down, but I noticed he would get tighter out of one, and I knew one was my weak point. So I just said, you know what, I'm not going to do what he's going to do. Gonna try my own line, and I guess it paid off for me.
It sure seems to have paid off for you. I mean, you undercut him twice, and that's actually a pretty brilliant racer strategy. I mean, if you know the leader's going to play a certain game, you've got to do something other than what he does, or you're just going to follow him all night. And with a guy like Merrick, who I mean, he's a highly competent racer. He's definitely going to be hard to beat. You got to be audacious. You got to be aggressive with the strategy. And I noticed we had a few good laps of door to door action with Merrick. What's it like as a racer, knowing that you're door to door with a guy you trust? I mean, that's equal parts thrilling and terrifying at the same time, isn't it?
Oh yeah, sometimes it's definitely scary. Um, the way I sit in the cockpit, I can see barely out of the left side window. So when I see Merrick, dart to my inside out of the corner, and then all of a sudden he's right there at my window. It shocks you a little bit, and then you have to go into offensive mode instead of defensive mode, and that's kind of a tough thing to switch through. But battling a guy like Merrick, I know how he races. I know he'll race me clean. But I know he'll definitely put up a fight, and that's what he did. He put up a big fight, made me work for it, made me earn it. But I respect the heck out of Merrick, and yeah, I trust him completely. He's one of the cleanest, most hardest racers I know.
And absolutely, and congratulations with another win. That brings you to three. You're one win away from Merrick. Do you think you can, your time up for all next week?
I hope so. Nashville's one of my stronger tracks, so I like concrete surfaces. So we'll see where it can take me.
Well, it certainly was watching you tonight, Sam. Believe it or not, what is the most technical super speedway in all of NASCAR? I mean, Indianapolis throws a lot at you. You've got corners that are identical, but they look different and they feel different as a driver. I mean, wind speeds matter. Keeping the tires on the truck matters. Fantastic execution tonight, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we'll open the floor up to you for any shout outs that you like.
Yeah, I gotta thank Jo over at Spino Racing. He does a heck of a job getting us ready for these things, hyping us up, getting us in the mood. AK Performance, Stock Car Society, Turtle Cove. Turtle Cove actually is my new acquired sponsor for my real life racing and Legends cars. So it's cool to be able to put a real life sponsor on the virtual truck. So shout out to them and all the other people who in the race who race clean, don't argue, no attitudes, just race clean and have some fun.
That is your top three finishers. And again, congratulations to Sam and, well, Robert. Um, they went green again. They went green all the way to the finish. And, like, what was your overall takeaways from this race?
Well, the Class B Open driver in me loves seeing a race go green the whole distance. I mean, two sets of green flag pit stops, no cautions, no ridiculous argy bargy. I mean, a lot of nice, hard, close racing when there were overtakes to be had. I don't think we could ask for very much more from a truck race here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway than what we were given tonight. Podium finishers that they all showed that they had a couple hardships and they had to overcome those hardships between Hernandez's spin on pit road, Merrick slide in the box, Sam Brochu with an extremely fast number 91 truck out in front of him that he had to figure out some kind of way to pass. And we've said it time and time again about endurance racing, but it happens in stock car racing as well. A car that's beating you on track, you can beat in the pits. And Sam Brochu showed that tonight. Outstanding performance by Merrick, Sam, and Patrick. Sam just got the little bit longer stick tonight and was able to pull off the win.
Absolutely. We had a little bit of everything. We had some drama, some tight racing. Well, obviously, we want to look at the final results here. Obviously, with Sam in first, Merrick in second, Patrick in third, and John in fourth, Ryan in fifth. Ryan, who was really towards the back of the field most of the race, ends up with the top five. So a really good job by him. Jacob in sixth, John in seventh, Brendan Gregg finishing eighth, Douglas in ninth, and Ryan Mitchell in 10th. But an overall really good race from everyone. And I really look forward to next week at Nashville. Like, I think that's going to be a really fun track.
Nashville has a lot of potential to be fun to watch, to broadcast, and even to drive. Nashville Superspeedway is a little bit of a sister track, you might say, to Dover, in that they're both concrete surfaces. And concrete, it's very fast, lots of opportunities for some nice, aggressive side-by-side racing. Concrete also chews up tires, so it's going to be interesting to see how the tire strategy works out next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, just looking back at last year during the MSRA league there between Alan and I, we stuck nose to tail there the whole way around. So there is still a huge potential for some really good racing there next week. But I'm really looking forward to potentially maybe some bumpers being used next week.
At Nashville Superspeedway, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's an intermediate that races like a short track. It definitely invites the bump and run. It's a nice wide surface too, so there's definitely 2 grooves that can open up, maybe even 3 grooves, depending upon how aggressive do you want to be? How much do your tires mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is going to be it for us here at BRN. Thank you to Robert and everyone that took part in this thing. And we will see you all next week, same time at Nashville Superspeedway.